Do you want to know why so many genuinely good people keep getting treated badly? It's not because they have less value, it's not because they're weak, and it's not always because they just happen to meet the wrong people. A lot of the time, it's because they got so used to enduring things that they started calling it kindness. And that's the part a lot of people don't want to hear. You can be sincere, you can be thoughtful, you can be the kind of person who always tries to keep the peace, always gives people grace, always makes room, always forgives. But when kindness has no boundaries, people stop seeing it as goodness. They start seeing it as permission, and from that moment on, everything begins to shift. People lie to you more easily. They show up late like it's no big deal. They take little shots at you and act like it means nothing. They only come around when they need something. And worst of all, they walk right past your boundaries like those boundaries were never real to begin with. Think about it. If a door is always open, people eventually stop knocking. If a person is always patient, people eventually forget that person can hurt too. This is not a video telling you to become cold, and it's not telling you to cut everyone out of your life. This is about helping you see 5 forms of disrespect that, if you keep accepting them, won't just ruin one day. They will slowly eat away at your self-respect, your peace, your relationships, and eventually the way you see yourself. And the dangerous part is this. Most of these things do not show up loudly. They show up softly, familiar, normal, every day. So normal that you tell yourself, it's probably fine. But those little, it's probably fine moments, repeated over and over again, are exactly what quietly destroy people's lives. Some people spend years in relationships where they are always the one who has to be mature, always the one who has to let it go, always the one who has to apologize first, always the one who has to understand the other person's personality, their stress, their moods, their excuses, and only when they're completely drained do they realize something painful. They were never being loved in a healthy way. They were being trained to accept what should never have been acceptable. That's where so many people get stuck. They think if they can just be a little better, a little softer, a little more patient, the other person will change. But the truth is usually the opposite. When you keep tolerating what is wrong, people do not value you more. They just learn that you are easier to cross. So before we get into each behavior, there is one thing you need to remember. Kindness is a beautiful quality, but it is not a license for other people to treat you however they want. Loving someone does not mean you have to absorb everything they do. Being mature does not mean staying silent in the face of what is wrong. Being kind does not mean being easy to dismiss. You can still be a good person and say no. You can still love someone and walk away. You can still be gentle without being easy to walk all over. If you've been putting up with too much just to keep the peace, comment 1 below, because sometimes the first step is not becoming strong overnight. Sometimes the first step is just admitting the truth. You let too much go too far, and the first sign usually doesn't come in loud. It starts with something small, something a lot of people brush off. Ali. A lot of people judge a lie by its size. If it's something big, they get angry. If it's something small, they let it slide. But here's what you need to see clearly. The real problem with a lie is not just what it hides, it's the message it sends. When someone lies to you, especially when they think you won't do anything about it, they are testing something very simple. Will this person accept being treated like they don't matter? That's what it is. A boundary test. And if you catch it, but still laugh it off, still tell yourself, forget it. Maybe they didn't mean it. I don't want to make it a big deal, then the lesson they learn is not that you're kind. The lesson they learn is this. With you, the truth is optional. That's why so many people start with one small lie. Then it becomes a bigger one. Then hiding things. Then twisting the story. Then making you question your own instincts. Almost every broken relationship starts there. Not with one giant betrayal, but with small distortions that were never addressed in the beginning. Some people lie about where they were. Some lie about what they did or didn't do. Some lie to avoid responsibility. Some lie to protect their image in your eyes. And some lie because they know you'll stay anyway. This is where you have to get honest with yourself. A good person can mess up. A good person can panic. A good person can hide something in a weak moment. But when the truth comes out, they respond differently. They take responsibility. They apologize. They correct it. Someone who disrespects you does something else. They deflect. They get angry. They deny it. They act like the problem is that you found out, not that they lied. That's when you see who they really are. So what do? You do not need to scream. You do not need to interrogate them. You do not need to win some dramatic argument. You just need to name it clearly, calmly, and without backing down. That's not true. I know what really happened. Do not talk to me like that. What I need is the truth, not a version that works better for you. That's it. Do not over-explain. Do not turn your basic need for honesty into some long debate. You do not need permission to be treated with truth. And this part matters. Not everyone who lies once needs to be cut off immediately. But if someone keeps blurring the truth, keeps making you guess, keeps forcing you to play detective inside your own relationship, then what's dying is not just trust, it's safety. And a relationship without safety eventually turns into a place where you stay guarded instead of feeling at peace. You can love someone deeply, but if every time they speak, a part of you is wondering, is this even real? Then you are no longer in peace. You are in survival mode. And that is not respect. A lie doesn't just distort reality. If you keep allowing it, it slowly teaches you that your reality does not matter. But there's another kind of disrespect that's even more subtle. It doesn't steal the truth. It steals your life 1 hour at a time. Time is the one thing that, once it's gone, never comes back whole. Money can be made again. Opportunities can sometimes be rebuilt. But an afternoon spent waiting on someone, a weekend you cleared because of a promise they made, a month of living in, let's see if they'll follow through this time. That is real life you already lost. So when someone keeps disrespecting your time, it's not just about being late. It reveals where they place you in their life. They show up late without letting you know. They cancel at the last minute like it changes nothing. They make promises easily, then fail to follow through. They leave you waiting, guessing, adjusting, rearranging. And if you get used to saying, it's okay, they will start treating that as normal. This is one of the easiest forms of disrespect to hide behind understanding. People tell themselves things like, they're probably busy. Everyone has a lot going on. I don't want to be too difficult, but the issue is not one isolated moment. The issue is the pattern. Anyone can get overwhelmed. Anyone can be late once. Anyone can have a bad day. But people who truly value you will let you know. They will apologize. They will make it right. They will show you that your time matters too. People who only move based on their own convenience will always have a reasonable excuse. And because the excuse sounds believable, you keep accepting it. You keep waiting. You keep rescheduling. You keep bending your life around someone who is not bending anything around you. And this is where a lot of people lose their dignity without even noticing. Because when you get used to waiting on someone else, you start teaching yourself that your time comes second to their convenience. Some people wait all day for one text. Some wait through 3 cancelled plans. Some wait months for a promise that never becomes real. Some wait for change that never actually started. And while they wait, their life stands still. People who respect you do not keep you trapped in constant waiting. They do not make your presence feel like something that can always be pushed back. So, your new rule has to be clear. Flexibility is beautiful. Unlimited tolerance is exactly how people start taking you lightly. When someone wastes your time, say it once, calmly, clearly, without bitterness. My time matters. If you can't follow through, I'm not going to keep arranging things this way. I need clarity. If you don't respect the plan, I won't keep making room for the next one. That might sound harsh to some people. It's not harsh. It's self-respect. Because people who value themselves do not keep handing their life over to people who live without consistency. If someone came to mind while hearing this, someone who always keeps you waiting but always has a good reason, comment 1 below. Because a lot of the time, what keeps you there is not hope. It's habit. The habit of accepting what should have never become normal, and at least this kind of disrespect is easier to spot. What's more dangerous is the kind that hurts you, then convinces you that you're the problem for feeling hurt. This is one of the sneakiest forms of disrespect. Because it doesn't come like a slap, it comes like a joke, a comment, A little remark dressed up as honesty. A sentence like, "Relax, I'm just joking." A sentence like, "You're too sensitive." A sentence like, "I'm just telling the truth." A sentence like, "You're making too much of it." If you've heard things like that more than once, then you already know the feeling. It's strange, because you know something felt off. You know it landed wrong. You know it hurt. But somehow they make you feel like the real issue is your reaction. And that is exactly why this is so dangerous. It doesn't just hurt you, it makes you doubt your own interpretation of what happened. You start asking yourself, am I too sensitive? Do I not know how to take a joke? Am I overreacting? Am I the difficult one? And the moment that happens, the power shifts. Now, they are no longer just insulting you. They are controlling the way you interpret the insult. This is how people get worn down for years without being able to explain why. They live inside relationships where their value is constantly being chipped away. But every time they speak up, they get labeled difficult, dramatic, weak, negative, or impossible. Think about it. You share something exciting, and they instantly find a way to take the air out of it. You become a little more confident, and they act like you're doing too much. You set a boundary, and suddenly they say you've changed. You feel hurt by the way they spoke, and they laugh it off with, "Come on, I was kidding." That is not humor. That is not honesty. That is a put-down wrapped in innocence. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A lot of people do that because they need you smaller in order to feel bigger. They can't stand seeing you too happy, too clear, too bright, too sure of yourself. So they pull you down one level and call it a joke. A real friend can give you feedback. A real friend can challenge you. But real feedback does not humiliate you. It sharpens you. It clarifies something. It still protects your dignity. But words that make you shrink, make you hesitate, make you less willing to share, less willing to be yourself, less willing to shine, that is not advice anymore. That is erosion. So the rule here is simple, even if it's hard. Do not keep people close who consistently make you feel worse about who you are. Not everyone who makes you uncomfortable is a bad person. But anyone who repeatedly needs you to dim yourself so they can feel comfortable is not safe for you. You do not need to argue for an hour to prove that their joke was cruel. You just need to stop laughing along with it. You can say it calmly, "I don't find that funny. Don't talk to me like that. If this is how you speak to me, I'm done with this conversation." And sometimes the strongest move is even quieter than that. Sometimes it's silence, a direct look, no smile, no reaction, no reward. Because here's the truth. What makes people stop is not always your volume. Sometimes it's the moment they realize you are no longer easy to manipulate. And after being put down long enough, a lot of people respond in a heartbreaking way. They don't pull back. They try harder, give more, endure more, hold on tighter, and that leads them straight into the fourth kind of disrespect. This one hurts in a different way. It's not loud. It's not obvious at first, but it drains you little by little until you don't recognize yourself anymore. You are always there, always listening, always reaching out first, always checking in, always helping, always trying to keep things together. But when you need them, they're busy. When you're tired, they go quiet. When you're hurting, they disappear. When you're the one falling apart, they're nowhere to be found. Some people call that bad timing. Some call it emotional mismatch. But a lot of the time, it's simpler than that. It's a one-sided relationship that went on way too long. And emotionally generous people get trapped here the most. Because they keep focusing on the best version of the other person instead of the real pattern. They remember the rare moments that felt warm. They cling to a few good memories. They tell themselves, maybe they're just stressed. Maybe they don't know how to show love. Maybe I need to understand them a little more. But hear this clearly. A healthy relationship does not force one person to always be the one who understands, always be the one who adjusts, always be the one who carries the emotional weight. If one person is constantly doing the work to keep the connection alive, that is no longer mutual care. That is emotional labor with no return. And the cost is heavy. You get tired, but feel like you can't rest. You feel hurt, but don't say it. You know you're not being valued, but you give more anyway, hoping that somehow things will change. That is how people slowly empty themselves out in silence. Some people only call when they need advice, only show up when they feel lonely, only reach out when they have a problem. But when your life falls apart, they are barely there. That is not normal busyness. That is imbalance. And here's the simplest test, even though it scares people the most. Pull back. Stop being the first one to text for a while. Stop rescuing. Stop organizing. Stop always being the understanding one, and then watch. If they notice your absence, reach out, ask questions, make an effort, and try to reconnect, then maybe there is still something real there. But if they disappear completely, that does not mean you were not enough. It means they were there because you were always giving. And this is painful, but freeing. Some people do not actually miss you. They miss what you did for them. They miss the access. They miss the emotional service. They miss the comfort of knowing you would always be there. And when you stop doing that, they do not feel like they lost you. They feel like they lost convenience. If you've ever been the one trying to hold a relationship together by yourself, comment 1 below, because some of the strongest people are the ones who have been exhausted the longest. They are not weak. They just got used to doing the work of 2 people for far too long. But even that is not the worst kind of disrespect, because there is one line that, once someone keeps crossing it on purpose, it is no longer just carelessness. It becomes intentional disrespect. This is the most dangerous one. Not because it is always the loudest, but because it goes straight to one core question. Will you actually protect yourself? What is a boundary? A boundary is not a wall that makes you cold. It is a simple rule that protects your safety, your dignity, and your peace. Don't yell in my face. Don't go through my phone. Don't tell other people my private business. Don't come into my life just to destroy my peace. Don't speak to me that way. Don't cross something I already made clear is not acceptable. That is a boundary. And this is where so many people get it wrong. They think saying it once is enough. It isn't. Saying it is only the beginning. A boundary you never enforce is not really a boundary. It is just a request. In other words, if you keep saying, don't do that, but every time they do it, you stay the same, accept it, and continue like nothing happened, then the lesson they learn is not where your limit is. The lesson they learn is that they can cross it and lose nothing. That is why this is the most dangerous form of disrespect. Because once you have clearly told someone what hurts you, what crosses the line, what cannot keep happening, and they still do it again, then it is no longer accidental. They are testing whether your words carry any weight. The first time may be a mistake. The second time is a warning. Repeated behavior is a choice. Some people know how to apologize really well. Some always have a reason. Some make you soften through tears, pain, their past, their circumstances. But you have to watch the pattern, not just the emotion of the moment, because an apology without change is just a tool to keep access to your life. Some people cross your boundary and say, I forgot. Some invade your privacy and say, it's not that serious. Some do the exact thing you clearly said not to do, then turn around and call you difficult for reacting. This is when you need to be the clearest. You do not need to say it 10 times. You do not need to prove how badly it hurt before you are allowed to have a limit. You do not need to give a full presentation on why your self-respect deserves protection. You state it once. If needed, you warn once. And if it keeps happening, you act. Not because you are cruel, but because you are trying to save yourself from a life where your words mean nothing. Some people fear this because they think it sounds too harsh. But what ruins people's lives is not having standards that are too high. It is staying too long in places that keep violating standards that were already basic. People who truly love you may not be perfect, but they will treat your boundaries as something to understand and respect. The only people who get angry when you finally have limits are the ones who benefited from you not having any. And that is the turning point. The moment you stop over-explaining your right to peace, you begin to become someone people can no longer treat casually. Not because you became scarier, but because you became clearer. Not because you became colder, but because you stopped betraying yourself just to keep someone else around. There is an uncomfortable truth that almost nobody says out loud. The people who are real with you will respect your boundaries. The people who are upset by your boundaries are usually the ones who benefited from your lack of them. They will say you've changed. They will say you're colder now. They will say you're harder to be around. They will say you're overdoing it. But a lot of the time, what they really mean is this: I can't control you as easily as I used to. And that is not loss. That is growth. You do not need to become aggressive to be respected. You do not need to win every argument. You do not need to turn into a hard, distant person. You just need standards. Standards for how people speak to you. Standards for honesty. Standards for your time. Standards for how people show up when you need them. Standards for what gets access to your life and what does not. And the most important part is not just setting those standards. It is having the courage to live by them. Because a lot of people say they want respect, while staying in places where they are constantly minimized. They say they want peace, while continuing to leave the door open for things that keep ruining that peace. They say they want healthy love, while calling endurance love. You do not owe anyone a long explanation for protecting yourself. You do not need permission to leave a conversation that is hurting you. You do not need to justify walking away from a relationship that keeps wearing you down. You do not need to feel guilty just because you finally chose yourself. And here is the beautiful part. When you stop accepting these kinds of disrespect, not everyone will leave. Actually, the right people become clearer. The sincere ones step forward. The healthy relationships finally have room to grow. And the people who were only there because you are easy to use begin to fall away on their own. That is not loneliness. That is filtering. At first, it may feel hard. You may feel guilty. You may feel empty because saying no is still unfamiliar. You may miss the feeling of being needed, even if the price was your exhaustion. But one day, you will realize something huge. Peace does not come from everyone being happy with you. Peace comes from no longer allowing what is wrong to keep living inside your life. You are not weak for staying quiet. You are not stupid for trusting. You are not wrong for giving so much. But once you can see clearly, you owe yourself something better. You cannot keep calling self-abandonment kindness. So remember these 5 things. Do not brush off dishonesty. Do not minimize people wasting your time. Do not cooperate with jokes that make you smaller. Do not carry a relationship by yourself. And do not claim to have boundaries if you are not willing to enforce them. You do not need to fix everything in one day. You just need one first move. Maybe that move is calling out a lie for what it is. Maybe it is stopping the cycle of waiting on someone who never follows through. Maybe it is refusing to laugh at a toxic joke one more time. Maybe it is stepping back from a one-sided relationship. Maybe it is saying it clearly one last time, then walking away if they cross the line again. You do not have to change your whole life overnight. You just have to stop betraying yourself one more time. And if you want to become calmer, sharper, and harder to disrespect, subscribe to the channel. Because here, we are not learning how to please everyone. We are learning how to hold our value, protect our peace, and live in a way that does not require apologizing for self-respect. Starting today, do not wait for someone else to give you permission to protect yourself. Give yourself that permission.